Oh my, oh my, oh my. I will tell you this now. After the 2023 local elections, there was a lot of coping going on from the Conservatives. A lot of coping going on from a lot of the local Conservatives. And I am shocked. It is still ongoing. It is still ongoing. We had the Rother Valley MP a couple of weeks ago. We covered his cope piece where, oh, congratulations, you managed to just hold on to a local council seat. Yeah, congratulations. But your idea that your big grand scheme of the Conservatives are winning in South Yorkshire, the cope was strong. The cope was strong on this one. And here today, we turn to North Tyneside. And we have yet another strong cope piece by a local Conservative councillor. Because somehow, once again, the Conservatives are winning when in this North Tyneside Council, in this 2023 last election, you won 4 seats. Labour have overall control over that council. It doesn't, quote, buck the national average. Your win rate for the seat that they'll be getting into was once again, just as we saw in the South Yorkshire, Conservatives are winning in South Yorkshire piece, wasn't exactly that amazingly high. Although I will tell you now, they did actually manage to buck the national average for turnout. There was a 40% turnout in that ward. So good on you for at least bucking that national average. I'll say that now because traditionally the average turnout for a local election is around about 25%, which is not very big at all. And I've said this multiple times. Getting elected as a local councillor, you can sometimes be elected on about 300 votes or even just a swing of about 100 votes. It does not take a lot of work to get elected as a local councillor. But now we're going to get into the cope going on here. So I would also invite any North Teessiders to comment on what this guy's going to say. What do you think about, what's his name again? Ollie Scargill. What do you think about Ollie's comments here about North Teesside? And is it, as he says, is it Labour's prolificity and infighting that isn't appealing to voters? Or is it more, shall we say, the fact that it is the Tories? Is it their rash spending and their own infighting, which is no longer appealing to voters? Because I'll tell you now, this recent Sunak U-turn will not appeal to anyone outside your own internal Conservative Party civil war struggle that is going to erupt over these green policies. Going to change your fortunes anyway whatsoever. But let's get into this wonderful cope piece. And I will warn you, it is wonderfully copy. But as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. Please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there's the link to the Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There is the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club link as well. So let's crack on into this piece. Obviously, once again, coming from Conservative home. Ollie Scargill, Labour's prolificity and the infighting in North Teesside does not appeal to voters. I will say this now. I don't think he's being really openly honest about what is going on here. And we'll get to this at the moment. Because like I say, I'm not a local to that area. I don't have a deep knowledge of understanding what's going on in the area compared to what we covered in South Yorkshire. But it always seems to me that what was put in that piece, what was put in this piece, seems very, very copy. Oh, so copy. So let's get into this, shall we? So it begins. In my ward, the Conservatives used to come in third after UKIP. Gee, I wonder what increased your vote. I wonder what increased your vote. The last time Labour lost it, before I won in 2022, Gordon Brown was Prime Minister. I was 7 years old. But this year, it returned one of the largest Conservative majorities in the region. Again, congratulations. But 4 seats out of the 60 seats for, I think, that particular local council tends to go to Labour because people understand, especially local Labour parties, they want to invest in local areas. They want to support and build up these areas. Meanwhile, I highly notice that the rebranding the local Conservatives have gone under, trying to heavily emphasize the local part, going on doorsteps saying, we are not the National Conservative Party. Please ignore this colossal mess that is going on. Meanwhile, they are offering the exact same that the National Conservative Party is offering, that they are going to cut services while somehow increasing growth, but also increasing spending as well. Doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest, when you look at what their policies are. So it continues. Polling. You might think the phenomenon of the red wall Tory is over, and almost certainly the polling is pointing to that. Absolutely. Congratulations. You might retain a couple of councillors, but the idea and the fact that I want to point out we are still calling you red wall Tories should still be a highlight indication of which way this is going to go come the next general election. But he continues. Most of the polls are suggesting a 1997 style landslide for Labour. And if there isn't a miraculous change in fortunes, most Conservatives in the Northeast will be wiped out. And I am looking forward to that. I think we all are looking forward to that day where we can finally just get these absolute incompetent lunatics out and actually get people in who are somewhat semi-competent and actually have plans and want to do stuff with and would better the country. Now we may have disagreements on that on the left, and that's fine. That's politics. Like I say, you never get anyone with 100% who you ever 100% agree with. But I've said this before. I would rather have a Labour Party in government that gives me about 40% of what I want than a Conservative government which will give me nothing. So let's continue. Yet, when faced with the reality of living under a Labour administration, the feeling on the doors in my ward is not quite different. With the cost of living crisis on everyone's minds, people want us to be more careful than ever with how we spend their money. This is the traditional Tory language we're used to being. Oh, Labour, they're just big spenders. You know, you shouldn't vote for them. They're not economically literate or economically competent as we are. Yet, as we'll get down into the comments, you've got someone who is saying that their local Conservative council is almost bankrupt. And bear in mind, we've had a big news stories about Birmingham going bankrupt, which, don't get me wrong, is a story. But this has ignored the numerous local Conservative councils who have gone bankrupt, not because they have increased their spending, but because they have fulfilled the promise of austerity by cutting as much as they can and still not being able to understand why following their ideology did not help them sort them out of this mess that they got themselves into. Those stories have been largely ignored. And yet, even Michael Gove recently trying to make this into a big thing by launching an investigation. And don't get me wrong, That investigation is valid and is good, but Michael Gove using it to try and score political points, yeah, not very good, to be honest. And ultimately, it will find out, oh, yeah, it's because, you slashed that council's budget by about, what, 40%, I think it is? Yeah. Wonder what's going to become the main source of the reason Birmingham Council went bankrupt. So he continues. So if you live under a Labour council, you have seen the costly, I like how he's about to say this, the costly vanity projects and questionable priorities. So first of all, what are these vanity projects and what are these, quote, questionable priorities? Love to see what that is. So you can imagine the anger when the North Teesside Labour spent over £1.5 million on a new and, quote, dangerous Dutch-style roundabout, only to rip up half of the cycle paths a year later to make way for their even more unpopular development of 3,000 new homes on green space. So, first of all, you're telling me that that local Labour council spent money to create a new roundabout. Well, I can tell you, my own council just gone through something very, very similar, and I will tell you now, there was a lot of anger and upset that this new proposal was being put through. But I will tell you this now: that new roundabout has increased the flow of traffic. It has improved the traffic jams that used to be there. It has pretty much gotten rid of them. It has improved the flow of traffic in that area nonstop. I don't know that area, but it wouldn't surprise me if that new roundabout has actually been a massive improvement. And just like many of the naysayers, they're still very much naysaying about it, but they are very begrudgingly saying, well, actually, it was quite a good improvement. And then, of course, you say, oh no, this is unpopular development, over 3,000 new houses on a green space. Well, bear in mind, it is your national Conservative government that has put house building targets on all these local councils. Don't get me wrong, 3,000 new houses, that's great. That's great. Yes, it's building on green space, but as someone points out in the comments, because of the Northeast Teesside Council, when you look at demographics, that demographic there is getting increasingly older. And the social care spending budget for that council is getting increasingly more expensive. If a Tory local, if the quote local conservatives do get into power, this is what will happen. They will sell off those green spaces to try and pay for that budget. And what will happen is simply this: you might get for at least 2 or 3 years the spending needed to care for that social budget. But then comes the problem: you run out of green spaces to sell. This is what we have seen with local conservative parties time and time again, selling off all these assets and then running into a position where they don't have any more assets to sell. Then they get into trouble and then they end up going bankrupt. That has been the pattern of all these local conservative councils that have gone under. But he says it back to this. So, whilst residents say that we need to get back to basics, I would love to ask what these residents say these basics are. I would love to know what they say these basics are, because you don't mention them yourself. The Labour mayor recently opened a £19 million bus station, which offers people routes into a town centre that has become desolate under her leadership, with more vacant units than ever. Nothing encapsulates Labour better than this: a road to nowhere. Really? You know how I interpret that? That your Labour council and your Labour mayor invested £19 million in a new bus station which can help people get into the town centre more easily. And if more people can get into the town centre more easily, then this means that those vacant lots won't be vacant too much longer. Because for those units to survive, they have to have footfall. If you cannot get people into your town centre, one of the best things to do is either have to have parking or good public transport. Why are people going to go into the town centre? So you're telling me Labour have invested £19 million into building this new bus station, which you vehemently disagree with because there's all these vacant lots. But ultimately, and I think you could probably find these numbers because councils do this, because they do monitor footfall. It would not surprise me if that investment into that bus station to get those new routes into the town centre, if footfall has increased. Would not surprise me if that were the case. Meanwhile, of course, if this was a Conservative mayor, £19 million on a bus station to increase services into the town centre, to increase footfall, to help local businesses. No, we're not spending that money on that. I think that says it all. That says it all. I can say the cope is indeed strong in this one. So getting that message across to people can be really difficult. Yes, of course it's difficult. Because what you are saying, that her investment into building that bus station, improving public transport, the services that go into the town centre, which will ultimately help the businesses in the town centre. Of course, if you are arguing against that, why are you not surprised? That is a difficult concept to sell people, that all that money put into that, to help the flow, to help those local businesses, to get more people into the town centre, something that you apparently want, but not like that, is difficult to sell people on the doorstep. Why are you not surprised at that revelation? Oh. But back to it. So, most of the North East voters have voted Labour for generations and may seem like many voters wouldn't imagine backing another party. Yes, the great Tory excuse. Oh, well, we can't win because, they'd vote for a donkey if we put a red rosette on it. The number of times I've heard Conservatives say that as their excuse for not winning a seat, a local Conservative seat up here, or at least a local seat up here, is immeasurable. Congratulations for ticking that off. If I was playing bingo, I would have a full house by now. But you continue. But once we get our message across, people listen. They start to talk about the money being wasted, the failures of the Labour Council, the strange and expensive projects. Again, what strange and expensive projects? What about this money being wasted? What about these failures? You're not actually talking or illustrating those. The bus station you've just said is, quote, bad. How is that bad? That to me strikes to be a very good thing for the local Teesside community. I mean, what? The residents have begun. The residents have begun to question for the first time while the council tax is being spent on morph statues across the borough. Highlighting this waste to residents was my strategy, and it really worked. Isn't Morph like from there and quite a popular celebrity? So maybe you want to celebrate that in some way. And of course, having statues and things like this is when you talk to most people, that's what people actually want. They want these places. They want their places in their town to look good. Meanwhile, of course, if you look at conservative local councils, the very first thing to be cut are things like this: the beautification of like town centers, even flower baskets and things like that gone, because can't spend money on that. Above all, and this is fun. This is fun. Above all, I think people know the difference between Westminster Conservatives and their local Conservatives. No, no, they really don't. There is no difference between these two parties. Trying to say that, we're local Conservatives, we're not the Westminster Conservatives. No, you are the same party. This attempt at separation, trying to distance yourself from Westminster, is bogus. You are the same party. The idea that you are any different is ludicrous. So, doing the campaign right means you can ride out the inevitable ups and downs of national politics. So, yeah, convince people that you aren't the actual quote conservative party. Your local conservatives. We're nothing to do with that other conservative party. We're local conservatives. Very deceptive, I think, on the doorsteps. Very deceptive indeed. Congratulations for trying to promoting that. Congratulations. I'm sure the Electoral Commission would love to know about your tactics about that, by the way. But you get back to it. Talking about these local issues that matter to people will always be a stronger message than moaning about the government in abstract. Labour just doesn't seem to get this. I know a lot of Labour local campaigners. I know a lot of the local campaigns that have gone on this area. They have always been entirely focused on local issues. Always. But highlighting that the fact that, oh, yes, the Tories have, cut the council budget. I think that's more than adequate to tell people on their doorsteps. Because one of the big things that a lot of these Red Wall MPs that got elected in 2019 were complaining about, or at least were hoping about, after that first initial big win. And they were hoping at that big first local election that they could replicate that and wipe out all these local Labour councils and councillors, because they did not want them. Because they knew that there was going to be this groundswell, keeping these Labour governments in, highlighting the key difference between the fact that you've got this Conservative MP that is saying and doing all this crazy stuff, while you've got these Labour councillors that are getting on with local issues, and your local Conservative MP is doing nothing to help these local issues. That's the message that those Red Wall MPs have been sending, that they are not willing to work with any local Labour councils that are in their constituency. A bad sign, to be honest. Very bad sign. So in the 2022 local elections, the Conservative faced a huge loss across the country, and you're still coping from it, apparently. Losing nearly 500 local councillors. But people in North Teesside voted differently. For the first time in the decade, we won Collingwood North. It was a fantastic and humbling night, but we knew we had our work cut out to try and prove that we were the right choice. You still haven't won anywhere near enough seats to be able to claim the local council. You won 4 seats in that versus the overwhelming majority of Labour wins that night. Congratulations. This year, it was clear Labour wasn't going to go down without a fight. Their Red Army came out in droves on polling day. I remember seeing Alan Campbell, MP, on the door at about 9 p.m. This was pretty intimidating compared to 5 of us, one of them being my mum. Oh, bless you. But We more than doubled our majority. You didn't really double your majority. You managed to at least hold on and increased your vote somewhat, but it wasn't exactly a great win. Just like we saw a couple of weeks ago with our friend from Rother Valley saying, Conservatives are winning in South Yorkshire. Congratulations, you won one local council seat, which you'd already won the previous year, which had already been pretty much Tory. This is exactly the same, except it is a different area. There is no difference between what you are putting out versus what we read just a couple of weeks ago from our other Rother Valley MP just a couple of weeks ago. No different. So despite all of Labour's efforts, Labour voter after Labour voter was switching to us. It felt like December 2019 again. And you know what? Most of these Labour voters, when they actually experience what it's like to have a Conservative MP, or in some cases, a Conservative councillor, they very, very quickly switch back. They very, very quickly switch back, as we have seen. Certainly, we will see in the upcoming local elections, and of course, in the next general election. Oh boy, I can say, good luck. We were also helped by the fact that Labour has a regionally unpopular figureheads. The undignified catfight between the North Tyne Mayor and the Police and Crime Commissioner, Kim McGuinness, is not endeared to Labour voters. You mean the North Tyne Mayor? You mean the guy who's building the incredibly expensive, very dodgy Freeport that really isn't going to help your area when it gets fully built, and he's not going to bring any of the promised benefits? Good luck. Good luck. And yeah, we'll see what happens when that commission comes out, because, oh boy, methinks Ben Houghton might be in for a world of hurt very soon. And if you read Private Eye or the Yorkshire Post, they are constantly covering the ongoing and uncovering a lot of stuff going on up there still. So, yeah, enjoy. I wonder how that plays out on your local doorsteps. The former, of course, has walked away from his party following his rejection as a candidate, whilst the latter is incompetent in her current role and harbours aspirations to be incompetent as the North East Mayor. Is this the one that was incompetent, that invested £19 million in a brand new bus station to help get more people into the town centre, to help build up the footfall in the town centre, which would ultimately help local businesses? Are we talking that same incompetent person? Because she sounds pretty competent to me. Next year, we have all-out elections. All 60 councillors in North Teesside are up for election due to the local boundary changes. Gee, I wonder how you'll be coping after that. It gives the Conservatives a fantastic opportunity, and our message to voters will be stronger than ever. The best message in a campaign is always the most positive one. Doesn't seem like you're putting forward a very positive message. You haven't seemed to put forward what were your reasons for winning? What were you saying to your people on the doorstep? What was your positive message to send? You haven't really put one forward. Instead, you've put forward this massive cope that Labour are bad. Labour are bad. They've spent £90 million on this bus station to improve footfall, to get people into the Moortown Centre. That's bad. And you admitted that it was difficult to try and get people onto that message. Anyway. But weird things happen in all-out elections. Some voters might only use one of their votes. Some might vote 3 different ways. And some might lend a vote to a candidate they recognize, even though They wouldn't usually vote that way. We're preparing for some very interesting results. And there you have it. The Cope excuse. If they don't win, if they don't lose their, if they manage to lose their seat or anything like that, oh well, we did say that weird things happen in all these elections. Woo! How weird, how wacky. Meanwhile, just want to highlight these two things about this. So first of all, David Smith, he wrote, our Conservative-led county council is on the verge of bankruptcy. I've news for Ollie. Your biggest expense going forward is social care, and you will be selling green spaces to pay for it. D. Christian writes, Tory incompetence, lies, profligacy, and infighting does not appeal to voters. Sorted it for you, Ollie. Oh dear. Far more negative comments in response to this article than there are positive ones. Shouldn't be surprised because it was the same below the South Yorkshire one as well. Yeah, this is Cope. This is Cope of the highest caliber. And I still can't believe they are still coping and seething about the last local elections still to this day. Imagine how bad it's going to be when they lose the next general election. Oh, it is going to be glorious. It is going to be glorious. But as always, we've gone on for quite a long time today. Didn't realize that. But as always, I was having fun. I hope you've had fun as well. But please do remember to click on the like and share button on your way out. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.